Hello developers, welcome back to our Laravel interview preparation series with programming fields. I'm Umesh Rana, and in today's video, we are diving into an important aspect of Laravel development, that is middleware. We will see what middleware is, its different types and usage in Laravel application. Thereafter, we will see some inbuilt middleware, and also we will see how you can create a custom middleware in Laravel. But before jump into the practical, let's understand what middleware is, its significance, and how you can leverage it to enhance your Laravel applications. So middleware in Laravel is just like a middleman that intercepts HTTP requests before they reach to the application. It works between the request and response. If you try to access any URL in the browser, so before reaching that request to the route and controller, the middleware will be there to check that request. So basically, it acts just like a bridge between our request and the application's response. It provides a convenient mechanism for filtering HTTP requests which enter into the application. Middleware can perform various tasks such as modifying the request or response, checking authentication, logging, and more. Laravel middleware is executed during the HTTP request lifecycle. It allows you to intervene the process and add custom functionality. So let's jump right into it. So I have created one Laravel application, and here I have opened that in VS Code editor. So at the very first step, let's create outline. So we'll create outline.md file. So today in this video, we are going to cover the following points. So firstly, we will discuss about types of middleware in Laravel, in which we will discuss global and route middleware. Okay. And thereafter we will see middleware functions and responsibilities. Okay. And inside this, we will discuss about intercepting request, and also we will see how we can modify request and response. Okay. Thereafter, we will discuss some built-in middleware in Laravel, and also we will create custom middleware. And then we will discuss about execution flow of middleware, in which we will discuss how middleware flow works. And then we will try to pass parameters in the middleware. Alright, and lastly we will see how we can pass dependencies in the middleware. That will be dependency injection. So let's start with these types of middleware in Laravel. So firstly we will see global middleware. So in order to understand this, let's switch to the project folder as app http, and here we have middleware folder. Inside this middleware, you will see there are built-in middlewares provided by Laravel itself. These middlewares are already registered inside this kernel.php. That means in order to work with the middleware, every middleware should be registered inside this kernel.php file. Okay. So before checking any built-in middlewares, let's click on this kernel.php file. So basically this kernel will contain all the middlewares, whether it is built-in or custom. So inside this middleware array, you can see these are the global middlewares. So here global middleware means these middlewares will be applicable for all the routes. That means all the HTTP requests. So let's suppose if I will try to access any route in the browser, so that incoming request will go through these global middlewares first. Let's understand by the example. So here I have already started this application. Now let me switch back to the browser. If I will refresh this, you will see I have accessed this home route. So when I refer to this home route, this is linked this home page. Alright. Similarly, if I will try to other route, just like I have created to-dos route. Alright. So if I will try to access /to-dos, then you will see by accessing this /to-dos route, we have the list of to-dos. Okay. So how this is working? So when I navigate to this route endpoint is linked to a specific controller and its function. Alright. So when I hit enter any endpoint in the browser, that particularly redirects to one controller function, or it can be a view directly. So in the case of home route, it is directly returning this welcome blade file. So here this global middleware means the request will go through the middleware before reaching to this controller function or before reaching to this view. Alright. So here middleware will work as a middleman. That means before reaching to this controller function, your request will go through this middleware. The global middleware will be applicable for all the incoming requests that is coming to the application. And second thing, we have this route middleware. So the route middleware will be specific for this single route, or it can be a bunch of routes. So in order to understand these two things, let's create first a custom middleware. Alright, Laravel provides artisan command to create middleware. So let's switch back to terminal, and here I will create one middleware through php artisan command. So the command will be php artisan make middleware and middleware name. So I will give middleware name as custom middleware. Now let's hit enter, and yes, middleware is created. Alright, so if we will check out to this file, so this middleware class has handle function. So this handle function has request and closure. So this request is basically incoming request that is coming to the application, and this closure next that represents the next middleware. That means this particular middleware will pass this incoming request to the next middleware. So whenever the request will come to this middleware, this will pass the incoming request to the next middleware, and by going through all the middleware, then the request will go to the controller function. Let's add dump here, and here we will write custom middleware interception. Now in the next step, we will have to register this middleware inside this kernel.php. Without registering, it is not going to work. So let's navigate to this kernel.php, and inside this middleware attribute, we will add that middleware. So here we will have to add the namespace as app/http/middleware. Alright, and inside this middleware we have the custom middleware, so we will add custom middleware : class. So it is recommended to add the custom middleware after these all inbuilt middlewares inside this array. Okay, so we have registered our custom middleware, and inside this custom middleware we already added this dump. Now let's switch back to the browser, and here let's try to refresh this application. So you can see our global middleware is triggered before accessing this route. Now let's try to switch to the other route. Yes, if I navigated to the home route, the custom middleware is triggered there too. As of now, we have registered this middleware in the global middleware. So before accessing any routes, this middleware will be invoked. Okay, here we can modify the request. Now let's say the second type, that is route middleware. So this route middleware will be specific for the routes. That means the middleware will be triggered only for the specific routes. So in order to work with this route middleware, let's switch back to the kernel first, and here let's comment this middleware from this global middleware group. Okay, and now let's switch back to the route file. So we have this web.php. So basically the route middleware will be applicable only for the specific routes. So let's suppose if I want to register this custom middleware only for this to-do route, then what I will do, here I will call this middleware function, and inside this middleware function I will have to pass this custom middleware class. So let's copy this class name, and we can add this inside this function as custom middleware : class, and here we will have to import this middleware. Alright, so we will have to register this namespace as use app/http/middleware and then custom middleware. Alright, so currently we have registered this custom middleware only for this to-do route. So let's come to the browser. If I will refresh now, then we can see that custom middleware is not triggered for this home route. Now let's try to switch on to-do routes. So if I will hit enter, then you can see it triggered the custom middleware. Alright, so this is the difference between global middleware and route middleware. The global middleware will be applicable for all the incoming requests for all the routes, but the route middleware will be applicable only for the specific routes. So we have covered this global and route middleware. Alright, now let's see how we can modify the incoming request and response. So let's switch back to the custom middleware file, and here let's print this request. So after this dump, I will add comma, and here I will print this request. Now let's come to the browser and refresh it. We are getting this incoming request. Alright, so we can manipulate or we can customize any of the parameters before sending this to the controller. Let's suppose I want to add something before sending to the controller. So I can write request merge. Let's suppose I want to add any key or value just like this, and let's refresh now. Okay, now inside this query we'll see we have appended parameter as key and value. Similarly, we can modify any request parameter before sending this to the controller. So by using this way, we can customize our incoming request. Now let's see how we can customize the response. So before sending this request to the next middleware, what I will do, I will capture this in one response variable. Okay, and at last I will return this response, and in between I will modify the response. Alright, this is modify request. Now let's try to modify this response before returning to this next middleware. So here we will add response the function, and inside this header I will set one custom header as let's suppose example header, and let's add some custom header modified response. Alright, so here before returning this response to the next middleware, I have added something to this response header. Alright, now let's try to dump this response. I will comment it for now, and here I will print this response as $response. Okay, now let's refresh this application, and inside this response we have this headers. So let's expand this headers, and inside this headers we will see this array. These are the default headers, and inside this we have added our custom header as X example header, and also we have added this custom content. So by using this way, we can modify the request and response before returning to the next middleware. Okay, now let's switch back to the code and let's comment these lines as of now. Okay, now we will discuss about some built-in middlewares. So inside this middleware folders, we have the list of built middleware as authenticate, encrypt cookies, event request during maintenance, verify CSRF token, and these all are the inbuilt middlewares. So let's talk about this authenticate middleware first. Inside this authenticate middleware, we have one function redirect to. So in Laravel, this middleware is basically used to redirect to the login page if the current user is not authenticated. Alright, and if we will check the next middleware redirect if authenticated. So inside this handle function, we have the same incoming request and closure. It will check if user is authenticated, then it will redirect to the home route, right? Else it will redirect to the login route. And if we will check to this kernel.php, then inside this you will see this authenticate middleware is already registered here, and here it is aliased with auth. So if we will try to access this middleware alias in route inside this web.php, for this particular to-dos route, we already added this middleware, custom middleware. Now in order to add multiple middleware for a specific route, we can add in the form of array. We already added this custom middleware class, and after this we will add the next middleware alias, because I'm using this alias that is already aliased inside this middleware aliases array. If the middleware is not aliased, then you will have to use this class itself, just like we already used this custom middleware class, because we have not aliased this custom middleware inside this kernel file. So we have added this auth middleware and custom middleware. Now let's come to the browser. Let's refresh this. You can see auth middleware is triggered and it said route login not defined. That means we don't have any route login, right? Inside this web.php, we have only these specific routes. So let's create one more route as route : get. We'll add testing, and here we will add name as testing. So instead of this route login, we will replace this with testing. Now let's save and refresh this application. You can see this is saying route testing has no action. So I will add one closure function inside this. Here I will add dump. This is testing. Okay, let's save and refresh it. So you can see when I access this /todos route, it automatically redirected this to testing route. Okay, why? Because inside this authenticate middleware, if the user is not authenticated, then it will return to this route. Currently we have added this redirection to this testing route, and inside this testing we have dumped this message only. So this will be helpful when we have to check if the user is logged in or not, and based on the authentication check, will redirect the user to the specific page. Similarly, we have the verify CSRF token. Generally, we know in Laravel, when we submit any form, we required a CSRF token in order to validate that form request. This verify CSRF token will be applicable only for web route. In case if you don't want to verify the CSRF token specific for the form, then you can exclude those post route inside this except array. And similarly, we have this stream strings middleware. Similarly, we have this trust hosts, trust proxies, validate signature, right? So these are the inbuilt middlewares provided by Laravel. So we have covered this built-in middleware, custom middleware, right? Now let's say execution flow of middleware. So the execution flow determines basically the order of the middleware that is already registered inside this kernel.php. Middleware will be working based on the added order. Let's suppose if the trust proxy middleware is added first, then the request will go through this first, then handle codes, and then, right? Based on the added sequence, the request will go to the each middlewares. However, we can customize this sequence. So in order to do that, let's check out the Laravel official documentation. So here, search for Laravel Middleware, and we have this first link. And inside this, let's click on this sorting middleware. So if you will read this documentation, so inside this sorting middleware, this provides middleware priority attribute. So this middleware priority attribute will override the existing sequence of the non-global middleware. So here it clearly mentioned this won't apply for the global middleware. It will be applied for only route level middleware. So let's define this middleware priority in the code. So here inside this kernel.php, after this protected middleware alias, I will just define this middleware priority. Alright, inside this middleware priority array, we will add the non-global middleware. So before adding any middleware inside this, you will have to make sure that middleware is not added in the global middleware. Alright, so as of now, we have custom middleware that we have created. So in order to differentiate the order of sequence, let's create one more middleware. So here we will create one more middleware as testing middleware. Alright, and inside this testing middleware, I will add one more DOM as, hey, this is testing middleware. Now let's switch back to kernel.php and let's register both custom middleware inside this middleware priority array. So I will add app/http/middleware/custom middleware : class. Let's duplicate this and change this to testing middleware. Okay, so here if you will notice, I have registered middleware in the sequence, like the first one is custom middleware and the second one is testing. Alright, so according to this sequence, the custom middleware should be triggered first and thereafter testing middleware. Now let's apply these two middlewares at the route level. So switch back to web.php file, and here I will apply this middleware for the home route. So here I will write middleware, and inside this I will pass array, and we have two middleware. So firstly I will call custom middleware : class, and then we have the second middleware as testing middleware, and I will add this one. Okay, this is imported here. So the order of registering this middleware is like, firstly we have this custom middleware and then testing middleware. Alright, and currently we have called in the same sequence as custom and then testing middleware. Now let's come to the browser. Let's refresh this application first, and here let's switch to the home route. So you can see, firstly it triggered custom middleware and then testing. Now let's change the sequence. So for changing the sequence, we don't have to change the sequence here when we are calling this middleware. Instead of this, we can change the priority in this middleware priority array. So let's move this testing middleware to top. Okay, now let's refresh this. And yes, this middleware priority has changed the sequence of this middleware. Alright, so by using this, you can override the current sequence of the middleware as in order to change the sequence. If we will comment this array, alright, and let's come to the browser and now refresh it. So as of now, you can see this triggered custom middleware first, followed by testing middleware, because we have called this middleware in the same sequence, custom and then testing. So this is all about middleware priority. Now we will see how we can pass parameters in the middleware. So let's switch back to route, and here we will pass parameter. So in order to pass route middleware parameter, we will pass in this way. We will concat : okay, and inside this we will define our value just like param1 value. Okay, now we will have to capture this value inside this custom middleware. So let's switch back to custom middleware. So we can receive this parameter here directly inside this handle function. So after this closure $next, we will receive one parameter just like param. Okay, now let's print that value. So let's save it and refresh now. So yes, we can see we received this parameter passed from this route middleware. Okay, now let's try to pass one more parameter. So we can pass multiple parameter by comma separated value, just like param2 value, param3 value, just like this. Okay, and in order to receive the parameter inside this middleware, we can define more variables or we can receive that in array. So better we can use this spread operator. Alright, so it will capture all the parameters that is coming from the route middleware. Now let's come to the browser and refresh it. Yes, so we received the parameters in the form of array. Alright, so this is all about middleware parameters. Now in the next step, we will see how we can pass dependencies in the middleware. So in order to inject any dependency in the middleware, we can simply import that class or controller and we can receive that dependency inside this class constructor. We already have some controllers created just like to do controller. Alright, so let's import that first. Use app http controllers to do controller. Okay, and here we will create constructor as public function construct, and inside this we will pass dependency as to do controller. Alright, and here we can define public $to do controller and we can assign this $this to do controller equals to do controller. Okay, and here we can call any function available inside this to do controller. So using this way we can inject any dependency inside this middleware. So we can call any function inside this custom middleware. It can be any service class as well. Alright, so let's try to call some function from that controller. So I will add $this to do controller, and inside this controller we have this edit function. Okay, so I will call this function and I will pass one parameter just like 2. Alright, and here I will return that ID directly, and let's capture this to do. Alright, and here I will print this one. Now let's switch back to browser. Let's refresh it. Yes, we can see we received that value from that controller. So this is all about dependency injection in middleware. Last but not least, we will see how we can use middleware for the multiple routes in case if we want to apply the same middleware for the multiple routes. So for this we will be using middleware group. So let's see how we can implement this. So let's switch back to web.php file, and here we can create route group of middleware. So for this we can define route : middleware. Let's suppose we want to create group for this custom middleware class. So we will have to pass this custom middleware class and then group and function. Alright, so inside this group of middleware routes we can add our multiple routes. Okay, so let's create few dummy routes just like route : group 1 function echo group 1 route function. Alright, similarly we can add number of routes just like this. Okay, now save this and let's switch to the browser. Now let's try to access these routes one by one. So let's suppose I want to access this group 1. So you can see this custom middleware is triggered for this group 1 route. Similarly, if we will navigate to the second route and for others as well. By using this we can group multiple routes in a same middleware. Okay. In conclusion, middleware in Laravel is a powerful tool for intercepting requests, modifying data, and enhancing the security of your applications. Understanding its uses and incorporating it into your project will undoubtedly level up your Laravel development skills. Thank you for joining us today. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them into the comment sections below. Connect with us on social media for updates. Links are in the description. Check out for next video for an exciting continuation of our Laravel interview preparation series. Until next time, happy coding.